What is going on, Eagles Nation? It's Shaunak Nadkarni, and today I have with me yet another special guest, Eagles legend, play-by-play commentator Merrill Reese. Merrill, thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I hope you and your family have been safe and healthy, and tell me a little bit about how quarantine's been treating you so far.
Well, it's like everybody else. It's been a long time since we've been able to go down to the Eagles headquarters or into the office, and everything I've been doing is from my home headquarters. So it's tough because we want to be around people, we want to be engaged in the full aspects of our jobs, but we do whatever we can be to be safe and to hope that everybody else is safe and healthy.
Absolutely. And I think right around this time, Eagles OTAs would be getting kicked off right now.
Yes, they would be. They would be. They'd be in full gear right now, but it's not going to happen. We talked to Doug Peterson the other day, and he's hopeful that regular training camp can begin late in July. So that's what we have to hope for.
Yeah, for sure. And just considering what we just talked about and the whole quarantine situation, we're hoping that a season takes place this fall, but how do you think the situation is going to pan out until then? Does the situation get better up until the point that we can have a season?
Well, that's what the NFL is doing. They are preparing. They have issued the schedule for the season. They are moving ahead with their plans. So um, anybody's guess is as good as mine. Really, we don't know what is going on in terms of the virus and what the restrictions will be at that time. So we are just planning and going ahead and hopeful that a regular season can begin. And who knows whether it will be with fans or without fans. Whatever happens, we know this. It's got to be safety first for everybody involved, the players, for the coaches, and for the fans.
Yeah, no doubt. Just with how little we know about this virus, I think the safety is always going to be number one priority. And you know, if the NFL does implement restrictions, what impact does that have on the Eagles? Because you know better than anyone in your 42 years of calling Eagles games that our fans have a distinct quality of making their presence known, away or home. Packing stadiums, the Lincoln Financial Field in particular. Even if they limit the capacity or take them away altogether, what's the impact?
Well, there would be no home field advantage. We know that. And I've always said that as a broadcaster, I am fueled as much by the roar of the great Eagles fans as I am by what is going on the field. So it would be different. It would be difficult, but at least it would be football. So, and then hopefully, eventually, as things move on and as a vaccine is arrived upon, is developed, we can return to normal and go back to the way we love it. But who knows how soon that will be, and who knows what will be on September 13th when the season for the Eagles is scheduled to begin in Washington.
Yeah, and and let's say we do have those empty stadiums. How differently would you feel calling games in that
Oh,
environment?
it would be crazy.
Yeah.
It would be absolutely. It would be weirder than anything I've ever been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
It would be almost like being at a scrimmage, at just a day of practice. So the
Mm-hmm.
two teams, I've been there when the teams have gotten together before a season, where the Ravens have come in or the Patriots have come in, and they've scrimmaged for about 3 days. So we have more of that kind of feel,
Mm-hmm.
with maybe even less people around.
Yeah, and a lot of these sports are considering that. And right now, you got the KBO League in Korea, and they have no fans, but they're still playing. But I've always felt that football had a different pedigree to it, and that you need the fans to complete the environment.
Well, there's no doubt
Yeah.
that the fans are a huge part of every sport, and I think particularly in football, where the fans, with the feeling in a stadium on that game day is unlike anything in any sport. I just think it's the absolute best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, So we'll stop thinking negative here, and we'll consider a reality where the current trend holds. States continue to open up, and the number of infected patients go down. We're able to get some semblance of a season with some capacity of fans. What are your expectations for the team that has had a pretty notable offseason, just with all the free agents and trades? What kind of impact are those guys going to have this year?
Oh, I think a big impact. Now, the thing you have to remember is it will be affected by the fact that there are no OTAs, off-season training activities, where you can start planning a lot of the stuff in May, June, and then they take the break and they come back to training camp. Usually by the time they come back to training camp, they have the playbook committed to memory. They're more ready to go in terms of anything but the actual execution. So it's going to be delayed to reach that state of readiness. And you start adding rookies like Jalen Reagor into the offense. It's not going to be the same as having him catch passes from Carson Wentz in May and June and feel comfortable with all of the patterns. But all 32 teams are under that same handicap, and so they will deal with it. I do believe that the Eagles are an excellent team the way they are comprised, and I do believe that the Eagles are a team that has as good a chance as any of the other 31 and better than most of them of actually going the distance again this year. I think by far they are the best team in the NFC East, and as much as this situation has handicapped all of the teams, it will be more so for the other three teams in the NFC East because the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Redskins all have new coaches and new systems. The Eagles have the stability of Doug Peterson and Jim Schwartz and their staffs, new people on the staffs, but they have the same coaches at the top of the ladder, and so there's a lot of stability there. So they have a head start over those other three NFC East rivals.
No, yeah, you bring up a great point. Just considering the fact that without the OTAs and some preliminary practices, the Eagles just having that previous foundation with Doug Peterson and all of the players that they already have, it's definitely gives you a head start. But you also brought up how they have other guys that they need to throw in the mix and build chemistry with, and a lot of great players actually. So, which one of those was your favorite addition from this past offseason?
Well, if you're talking about the draft, you generally look at the number one draft pick, and I think that Jalen Reagor is a dynamic player. I've seen a lot of him on tape. I've also seen some of his games at TCU. And when he catches the ball and gets into the open field, he reminds me of Brian Westbrook. But I think he's going to be an outstanding addition to this team. We'll see about the others. I think it's a tough year when you're dealing about a rookie quarterback in the second round to have him in any kind of state of readiness to even be a backup by the time the season begins because there's so much that goes into the education of an NFL quarterback. I mean, I think even the teams that took the first-round quarterbacks like Tagovailoa and Barrow and Herbert, they're going to have a tough time getting those guys ready for the beginning of the season because they didn't have this whole off-season to implement the offenses the way they usually do. So in the case of somebody like Jalen Hurts, I think his time, even as a backup, I think the backup going into the season is without doubt going to be Nate Sudfeld because he's been here for 3 years, and to expect Jalen Hurts to even challenge for that spot is unrealistic. The linebackers are interested. Davian Taylor is going to be he's a talented player. I've spoken with Seth Joyner, one of the best Eagles linebackers ever, and he is very excited about Taylor. He said he has a lot of natural ability. And Sean Bradley, the young player, the sixth-round pick from Temple, that Seth Joyner has told me he believes that he can make an impact right away and he's going to be a big play linebacker for this team. But again, you have to wait and see what happens once they get on the field. But I have a lot of respect for Seth, and he loves those linebacker picks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just an amazing draft overall. Um, from Jalen Reagor to all the way down to Casey Toohill, one to last. Every single pick was added depth to some point. And within that draft, how well do you think the Eagles did to not only improve the team overall, but to help out their franchise guy Carson Wentz?
Well, I think they did a good job. I really do. I mean, they picked up two other wide receivers, and Mike Quick thinks that they are both fast guys. I mean, John Hightower, he's one of Watkins. They're fast guys, but we don't know right now how ready they are for NFL action. There's a long way to go. And then a long time ago, I learned that to really evaluate a draft, you have to look back 2 years down the road. Look, we're talking about a player last year in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And I think that a lot of people would say that his first year was disappointing. But go back to my partner in the broadcast booth, Mike Quick, when he was a rookie with the Eagles. Do you know how many receptions Mike Quick had in his first year? 10. And he went on to be one of the best receivers in Eagles history. So it takes a while. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside could feel a comfort level this year that allows him to really be an impact player. I know he's a bright guy, and I know that he's a hard worker. So let's see. So how much this draft class can help the Eagles in 2020 remains to be seen. And how much they can actually contribute in years to come is something that we don't know right now. We do know that based on their college accomplishments, based on the opinions of scouts and people who study these players at the various combines and all-star games, that they are highly thought of. But we will not really know until, say, 2022 when we look back and see how this class develops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He actually said that, he was thrown into a lot of situations where he didn't know what to do. And on top of that, he actually said that he was ailing an injury throughout the season. So I think we're all just looking to see what he really was at Stanford. He was a great prospect coming out of college. And I think he can take over that Alshon Jeffrey type of role as a deep threat, jump ball specialist, as they said he was. And going back to...
Well, hopefully the deep threats are going to be Deshaun Jackson. He's got to stay healthy, but Deshaun Jackson and Jalen Reagor are the guys who you're going to look for to be the deep threats in this offense.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why they invested in so much speed. Like you said, Jalen Reagor taking Hightower and Quez Watkins, and then they added Marquise Goodwin through a trade. That was something that they were determined to do because speed was something that they lacked tremendously last season. And what does that speed do?
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence. That the two fastest teams in the NFL last year met in the Super Bowl. Kansas City and San Francisco were really deemed to be the two fastest teams in the NFL.
Yep. Speed does wonders for your team because it's just stretching the field is a big part of today's offense when it's become a passing league. And with Carson Wentz's big arm, I think you just got to complement that with speed.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. And with all that, I mean, in the draft, going back to the Jalen Hurts selection, what volume does that speak about the organization's belief in Carson? Or do you think, Coach Peterson and the staff plan on using him as a Taysom Hill type of player?
I don't think he really is a Taysom Hill type of player, and I think that his quarterback skills are much more highly developed than that of Taysom Hill, who really was a free agent. I think that when you talk about Jalen Hurts, you're talking about a very talented quarterback, and I think his days as a quarterback in this organization. What happens remains to be seen. I was a little puzzled by that pick, particularly this year, not about the talent of Jalen Hurts, but about a quarterback in that second round. But they know what they're doing, and they know what their plans are. And I think it's just protecting themselves down the line if something should happen to Carson Wentz, so that they have the highest possible caliber player to go in and fill in. But for now, I still think that guy is Nate Sudfeld, because Nate Sudfeld's better than a lot of people think he is. I watch him day in and day out. He's got a big arm. He's very, very bright. He's a guy who's 6'5", 6'6". He can play. So I think they've got a solid backup quarterback, and I think they have in Hurts a wonderful developmental quarterback.
Yep, and like you said, without the OTAs, it's hard for Hurts to get in and take over that second spot. Whereas Nate Sudfeld already knows the Peterson playbook, and he's been in the organization for 3 years now. So, although not much playing time, he's showed up in the preseason and he's made some big plays. I remember the game against the Titans last year where he had a beautiful pass to Mark and Michelle, and unfortunately he got hurt later on in the game. But I think he was really shining in that game.
Yeah, there's no doubt about his ability. He's got a great arm. He's got the knowledge of the game now. So I'm anxious to see him play during the preseason. I'm anxious to see Hurts play during the preseason. And I'm anxious to see Carson Wentz in bubble wrap and hold him away from all of this stuff until the season begins.
Yep. And no matter what happens, that's just one of the best quarterback rooms in the league. I mean, you have 3 extremely talented quarterbacks, and they all bring a different dynamic to the room.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So
I absolutely agree.
Yep. So we'll do one last fun question to wrap things up. What are your top 5 calls as an announcer for the Eagles, in your opinion?
Well, I have to do them other than the first 2 as I go along, because my number one would be the Super Bowl, the last play of the Super Bowl, where we all realized what we have dreamed about for so long, with the Eagles winning Super Bowl 52. So that final Brady pass and the subsequent ball falling to the ground and the game ending and the Eagles capturing the Super Bowl. That would be. I tend to think in terms of moments rather than calls, but that is the one that meant the most to me. My second favorite moment would really be December 19th, 2010, and that was the punt return by Deshaun Jackson that beat the Giants at the Meadowlands or at MetLife Stadium. That game was such an amazing come from behind effort by the Eagles, and such spectacular quarterbacking by Michael Vick in that second half, and just the way it ended. That would be right there at number 2. Number 3 might be the actual initial miracle of the Meadowlands on November 19th, 1978, when Herman Edwards picked up the Joe Pisarcik fumble and took it the distance. Other calls, there was one with Ron Jaworski to Mike Quick for 99 yards to beat the Atlanta Falcons in overtime. That would be right up there. And if I were to think of one other, or one other call that people talk about, the Jake Elliott 61-yard field goal might be there, and that was a great moment that turned around a season. But there was another one that I think about often, and people will impersonate me doing it from time to time. It was the time the Eagles stacked up Emmitt Smith 2 times in a row, once to stop a Dallas drive, and then the officials said that the 2-minute warning had negated that play, and then the Cowboys came back with Emmitt Smith, and I remember yelling, they stopped them again, stopped them again. It's Groundhog Day, they stopped them again. So those would be my favorites.
Those are all amazing moments. And when you talked about the 61-yarder, I've always held the belief that that truly sparked a Super Bowl run. I don't know if they make it that far that year. If
I don't either.
Yep. But yeah, I mean that's just about gonna do it. Merrill, thank you so much for joining me today. And I look forward to hearing a lot more Eagles touchdowns in the future. And hopefully you're in the booth come September.
I hope so, and it's been a pleasure being on with you, and I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you as well.